Hong Kong at night always felt heavy, like a cup of tea left steeping too long, a film of condensation resting on everything. The sounds of late buses and taxi horns drifted in from the distance, a constant backdrop that never really went away. Inside her tiny apartment, Lan sat hunched over her laptop. She was the voice behind Echoes at Midnight, a niche podcast where she retold Asian ghost stories with carefully layered sound effects wind chimes. Doors creaking, the slap of slippers against tiles. Every night she recorded, edited, and published, feeding an audience that craved dread at 2 a.m. On this particular night, the clock on her screen flipped to 11:47 p.m. Just then, her inbox pinged. A new email. Subject: a story for you. The sender's name was nothing but garbled letters, nonsense, like someone had smashed their keyboard. Lan frowned. The body of the email contained only one sentence: do not enter a bathroom at 11:47. Attached was a low-quality audio file. Against her better judgment, she put on her headphones and pressed play. Static filled her ears first, the broken hiss of a distant radio. Then came breathing. Slow, deliberate, as if someone was trying to hold something back. After 10 seconds, a man's voice, hoarse and wet. Where water lingers, the door opens twice. Lan yanked off her headphones, heart racing. Ain't. She checked the email again, intending to reply. But her screen flashed an error. Address not found. Whoever had sent it to anyone had no longer existed. The next morning, she logged into her podcast account and froze. Overnight, her listener numbers had spiked. Hundreds of new comments appeared beneath her latest upload. No words, no sentences, just for digits repeated over and over. 11:47. Lan leaned back, her stomach sinking. Everyone seemed to know the number. Everyone had a story. Someone wrote about hearing a bell ring at exactly that minute. Someone else said their bathroom door swung open twice, even though it was locked. Another wrote simply, I heard her breathing behind me at 11:47. Lan made a decision. Her next episode would be a special, the 8 doors at 11:47. She didn't realize yet that when you start mapping the doors, you must always place a red dot that says you are here. This time, that red dot was her. The first person to contact Lan after she teased her new episode was May, a longtime listener. May worked in an aging office block in Shungwan, where one restroom in particular had a reputation. Staff avoided it after hours. Some wouldn't even walk by. Lan met May outside the building at dusk. The office tower rose 6 floors, its walls stained with old water leaks. Inside, fluorescent bulbs buzzed faintly in hallways painted a tired green. May guided her to the stairwell, voice lowered. Years ago, someone jumped from these stairs, she said. At the far end of the hall stood a bathroom door, metal plate corroded, lock polished bright from countless nervous fingers. Lan clicked on her recorder. The mic picked up the buzzing light, the scrape of her shoes. When she held still, she caught something else, an almost imperceptible gulp, like someone swallowing too hard. Listening back later, that sound fractured the silence like glass. Afterward, they crossed the street to a coffee stall. The owner, an old man with hands browned by years of boiling kettles, served them thick black brew. When Lan mentioned her podcast, he leaned closer. 7th month? A few summers back? He said. I burned Joss paper at the entrance to keep them calm. Rain came down hard, put the fire out. A few minutes later, a woman walked in. White jacket, hair dripping, skin pale. She asked to use the restroom. Of course, I said yes. But 10 minutes later, she hadn't come out. Only a stench, like rot and iron, and something thick and black in the bowl. Not blood, not sewage, something in between. My worker quit the next morning, never came back. Lan scribbled into her notebook, water plus closed space plus midnight equals yin piled upon yin. Moist, sealed rooms were thin places, she realized. That night, replaying her recording, she noticed something chilling. At exactly 47 seconds into the track, the fluorescent buzz cut out for a heartbeat, like something had stepped directly between her and the mic. Lan's inbox swelled with messages after her teaser episode. Most were just fragments, numbers, dreams, vague warnings. But one stood out. a long letter from a man who refused to give his real name. He signed it only as Tony. His story began 10 years earlier in Kowloon, in a private housing estate with an underground garage that smelled of rust and mildew. Tony had been an IT manager, often returning home after midnight. His preferred spot was a corner stall on the 3rd level, far from careless drivers. One night as he shut off his engine, a voice whispered directly into his ear, "Sam." "Sam." Tony froze. His name wasn't Sam. He looked around. The garage was empty. Dismissing it as exhaustion, he shook it off and walked toward the lift. His phone rang, startling him. Friends inviting him out for SCU late night supper. He agreed, turned back to his car, and slid into the driver's seat. That's when the temperature plummeted. His breath fogged inside the cabin. As he pulled out, his peripheral vision caught a figure, a woman in a red dress, standing by the concrete pillar where his car had been. Her hair obscured her face. She didn't move, didn't follow. She only watched. Tony tried to laugh it off with his friends later, but one of them grew serious. "Don't park there again," he warned. No explanation, just certainty. The next night, fate cornered him. The garage was full. The only open slot was beside his usual one. He backed in, but when he stepped out, he realized with a jolt he was in the exact same space as before. He knew he had chosen the adjacent stall, yet somehow the car had slid back into his cursed corner. When he flicked on his headlights, the woman in red was directly in front of his windshield, transparent, long hair dripping, lips unmoving, though her whisper filled his ears. "Sam, don't you remember me? I died because of you. You don't even know who I am. Come with me." Invisible hands tightened around his throat. He clawed at the air, choking until another voice, male and calm, spoke just outside. "Miss Chu, debts from past lives must remain in the past. Let it go." The grip released. A security guard in uniform leaned in. Tony gasped for air. The man's eyes held an ancient sorrow. "You're lucky I was on patrol," he said. Next time, maybe not. When Tony asked around later, no one knew of such a guard. He never saw the man again. Lan wrote the words slowly into her notebook. Red dress equals vengeance. Security equals guardian spirit. The letter ended with a final warning. Even after Taoist priests performed rituals, Tony still glimpsed the woman's shadow along highways. His car was later wrecked in a near-fatal crash. He never bought another. Lan listened to the recording twice, her pulse racing. At 11:47 that night, her own bathroom door rattled in its frame. She didn't dare open it. Lan's research next led her to Takayama, a mountain town in Japan whispered about on obscure forums. The place was called Yamakagi Ginga Shrine. Built over 4 centuries ago, it had served not just as a sanctuary, but as a prison. When villagers died violently, their spirits were not released to the afterlife. Priests bound them inside the shrine grounds, locking rage and grief behind ritual barriers. Over centuries, hundreds of souls piled up like stagnant water. For generations, a lone priest had maintained the rituals, but 5 years ago he died. The ceremonies stopped, the walls weakened. Tourists began reporting voices calling their names at dusk. Figures in kimono gliding among the cedars, lights hovering in mist. Authorities posted warnings. Do not enter after sunset, but curiosity is stubborn. One of those curious was Kenji, a 26-year-old photographer from Tokyo who specialized in abandoned places. His Instagram was filled with haunting shots of collapsed temples, forgotten tunnels, and he heard of Yamakagi Ginga. He couldn't resist. Lan read his surviving blog posts, piecing together the fragments. Kenji hiked up late one October afternoon, mist rising through the forest. The silence unnerved him. No insects, no birds. He reached the shrine just as golden hour bled across the trees. At first, he was ecstatic. The architecture weathered, moss on lanterns, cedar trunks like columns. He set up his tripod, snapping shots. The mist swirled beautifully in his lens. But then the air grew unnaturally cold. His camera captured images he hadn't seen with his eyes. Faint figures in traditional dress standing behind the torii gate. In the next photo, there were more. Each shot showed them closer. Then a voice. Clear, intimate. His grandmother's. She had been dead 5 years. Kenji-san. He spun nothing. only mist. When he checked his screen, he froze. The latest photo showed the interior of the shrine, dozens of spirits facing the camera, eyes fixed on him. The mist around him condensed into shapes, whispering voices, some familiar, others ancient trolls from every side. "Stay with us, Kenji. Don't leave. We've been waiting." No matter which way he walked, the trail bent back to the shrine. He was trapped. Only when he remembered Buddhist prayers his grandmother taught him did the crowd falter, the mist recoil. He stumbled into a cedar grove where the spirits dared not enter. There, he found a hidden altar, symbols carved deep. Protection. Through his lens, he saw the spirits forming a circle outside, unable to breach the grove. Among them, a modern figure jeans jacket. Kenji recognized him. Tishi, a fellow photographer who had gone missing months earlier. Lan paused over that detail, breath-catching. The story of Tishi's disappearance had spread across forums, but no one had known what happened. Until now. Kenji claimed Tishi spoke to him through the lens. The camera is the key, but also the trap. Delete the photos, or they'll cross over. Kenji erased every shot, each deletion peeling the spirits further back. When the last image vanished, so did the mist. The forest was silent again. He made it out alive. But he never picked up a camera again. Lan closed her laptop. The cursor blinked on her draft episode outline. Door 3, the parking lot. Door 4, the Cedar Shrine. It was almost midnight, almost 11:47, and behind her, her bathroom door clicked once, then again.
The next thread Lan pulled unraveled into something disturbingly close to home. A student named Nora had worked part-time at a cafe in Mongkok during her university years. Her account had been buried in a local forum, dismissed as youthful imagination. But the details were too precise to ignore it. It was Hungry Ghost Month. Nora's boss had followed tradition, burning offerings outside the shop before leaving for the night. Rain extinguished the fire halfway through, an omen. Nora and her co-worker Adam stayed late to close. At 10:30, a middle-aged woman entered, pale, soaked, lips bluish, as though she had been standing in cold rain for hours. She asked to use the restroom. Against policy, Nora let her. The woman locked herself inside. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Adam swore he hadn't seen anyone enter. Nora's nerves spiked. She had watched the woman walk in. They finally unlocked the door. Empty. Only a black tar-like sludge in the toilet, thick and stinking of decay. Adam flushed it quickly, hands shaking. Then the chime over the entrance rang. They looked up. No one when they rolled down the metal gate to leave. Nora froze. Through the slits, she saw her again, the pale woman standing at the restroom door, staring. The next day, Nora quit. Even years later, she avoided that street. The cafe closed within a year. Locals whispered of a woman who appeared near its restroom during Ghost Month, always asking the same question: "Can I use the bathroom?" Lan leaned back from her desk. She replayed the story in her head. It struck her: bathrooms, stairwells, elevators, all liminal spaces, thresholds between public and private, stagnant, yin-heavy zones, perfect places for spirits. And then she heard it. Her own bathroom door clicked once. Not the rattling from before. This was softer, almost polite, as if someone were asking permission to enter. Lan didn't move. She didn't breathe. She only whispered to herself, "Not yet."
That night, Lan revisited the most terrifying thread she'd encountered yet. The cursed calls at 11:47 p.m. The story came from Tokyo. It's from a software engineer named Tishi, who had vanished 3 years earlier. She had pieced together his tale from fragments, forums, blog posts, and a corrupted audio file the police had allegedly found on his laptop. It began with a single phone call. 11:47 sharp. An unknown number, impossible digits. When he answered, there was silence, then controlled breathing. Then a woman's voice. "Are you alone?" The call never appeared in his phone records. The next night it rang again and again. Always the same time, always the same question. Soon, the voice knew things about him. His job, his apartment, his routines. She told him he was perfect, so beautifully isolated, so ready to disappear. By the 5th night, she was at his door. Long black hair, black eyes like pits. Her voice echoed through both the phone and the wood. "Let me in." On the 6th night, she gave him an ultimatum. "Tomorrow, you choose. Say yes, and we'll be together. Say no, and I'll come in anyway." No one knows what happened on the 7th. When Tishi's employer reported him missing, his apartment was untouched. Laptop open, notebook filled with frantic handwriting. Except the ink had vanished, leaving only blank pages. Lan wrote in her journal. 11:47 equals death call. Final choice. She closed her notebook. Looked at her phone. The screen was dark. Until it wasn't. The glow lit up her desk at 11:47 exactly. Unknown number. Too many digits, shifting on the screen like static. Her throat closed. This was impossible. She hadn't given her number to anyone connected with these stories. The phone pulsed with each silent ring. Lan reached out, trembling, but didn't answer. Then, through the silence of her apartment, a whisper, not from the phone, but from behind her bathroom door. "Are you alone?" Lan snapped the phone shut, tossing it onto the desk. The whisper stopped. But she knew this wasn't over. Lan stopped sleeping. Every night she sat at her desk. Lights dim, notebook open, phone face down. Her research had bled into her own life now. There was no barrier left between observer and participant. The stories she had collected weren't isolated. The bathroom spirits, the stairwell apparitions, the cursed calls, they were threads of the same web. Each victim was alone. Each encounter occurred in liminal spaces where yin energy pooled. The woman with black eyes, the voice at 11:47, the spirits in mist, they were different faces of the same hunger. Loneliness was the bait. Isolation the condition, and she fit the pattern perfectly. On the 3rd night, Lan finally answered. The call came at 11:47 sharp. The impossible digits glowed against the dark. Her hands shook, but she pressed accept, first only breathing, then that voice female, low, almost tender. "You've been listening to me, Lan." Her chest froze. She hadn't told anyone her name in weeks. "What do you want?" she whispered. "To finish what you started," the voice replied. "You've studied all the others. You've read their stories, traced their endings. Don't you see? You are the next chapter." Lan forced herself to write in her notebook with one trembling hand. "Voice knows me, wants me to join. Same pattern. I don't want this," she said. "You already chose it," the woman replied. "You live alone. You bury yourself in stories of the dead. You listen when no one else dares. You're already halfway gone." The line crackled. And then, impossibly, the voice came not just through her phone, but from her apartment itself, surrounding her, as if the walls themselves were speaking. Lan turned toward her bathroom door. The knob rattled once. "Tomorrow," the voice said, soft and final. "Tomorrow. You decide whether to open the door, or I will." The call cut to static. Her notebook pen rolled from her hand. She realized only then that she'd been crying. The following night, Lan prepared. She placed salt across the threshold of her door. Bowls of water at each corner of the apartment. Incense burned until her walls reeked of sandalwood. She didn't know if any of it mattered, but she had to try. At 11:47 exactly, her phone lit up. She didn't touch it. She let it ring, glow pulsing across the dark room. Then 3 knocks on the bathroom door. Her chest tightened. It wasn't her front door. It wasn't the hallway. It was the small, windowless bathroom 10 feet away. The voice was no longer a whisper. It was clear, coaxing, familiar. "You've always wanted answers. I can give them to you. All of them." Open the door, Lan shook her head, clutching her pen, writing blindly in her notebook. Bathroom equals threshold. Door equals choice. I don't want to disappear, she said aloud. The knob rattled harder. The mirror inside the bathroom clattered to the floor. Wait. You don't disappear, the voice said. You transform. You join us. No more nights alone. No more silence. Just connection. Forever. Lan backed toward the front door. The salt line she'd poured earlier was glowing faintly in the dim light, as if holding something back. The phone stopped ringing. The apartment fell silent. Then, from behind the bathroom door, one last sentence, spoken in a voice that was both gentle and merciless. You have until tomorrow. After that, the choice is mine. The apartment plunged into silence. The air felt thin, wrong charged with something waiting. Lan's notebook lay open on her desk. Her final entry was scrawled in jagged handwriting. If you are reading this, and your phone rings at 11:47, don't answer. Don't open the door. No. Don't believe the promise of never being alone. Because what waits on the other side is not salvation, it is hunger. And as she wrote the last word, the bathroom door clicked softly. Once, twice. As if someone had already begun to turn the handle.